Years ago, I was operating the old airport at Manassas, Virginia, and a young fellow in high school came to me, and his name was Ken Hyde, and he wanted to know if he could go to work for me, and I hired him and taught him to fly and taught him aircraft mechanics. Well, years later, he became an American airline captain, and he got this idea for the Flying Circus while he was still flying for the airlines. And he came to me and asked me if I would like to come and maintain these old airplanes that they were buying. They were replicas of World War I, and kind of run the base there. And I told him, I said, yeah, I said, but tell me more about it. I said, I would like to be a part of it. And I said, do you have any stock left to sell? And he said, he thought they could find me some stock, so he talked to his people. And then, so I joined the Flying Circus as a stockholder, but also I was given a little stipend to assemble all the airplanes and get everything ready for flying, and then become the airport curator there for the show. The triplane came out of Ohio. The Sopwith Camel, the Rumpel, the B-2Cs, the B-2C came out of England. They had been built for a movie that never was developed. And our little Cub came out of New England, and the Eindecker came from Texas. And we just got them all over. The Newport was built in Georgia, but we picked it up at the big air show in Oshkosh. It was in the museum out there. And we got all those airplanes that came in, and most of them needed assembling, so I assembled the airplanes and test flew them. And that's about how I got involved with it. The first 2 years, the Flying Circus itself owned airplanes. They owned these airplanes that I just mentioned, but then some of the guys owned their own airplanes that were built in the 30s and 40s. And through assembling and flying some of the airplanes, one of the airplanes was built in Wisconsin. It was a replica of a 1911 airplane. And so anyway, to get started, we all kind of tried out to see who could fly what and what they could, could they do. So I flew the 1911 airplane, and they gave me the job to fly that in the show. And I flew the Sopwith Camel, and so I got to fly that in the show. And a lot of these people were airline captains and everything else, and we'd all been together there for a few months. And I remember when I flew the little 1911 airplane, one of the captains came up to me and he says, "I didn't know you could fly." And I said, "Well, damn it, you hired me." I said, you should have known what I could do." So I got the job then of flying a couple of the airplanes in the show. And but anyway, that was how I got introduced. And there was 16 other people. I was the 17th involved. And we all signed a $100,000 note to buy these airplanes and to buy the field, and got started. Originally, the beginnings of the Flying Circus was 17 people, and I keep their names. I know who they are. And Nicky Arundel, who was a great person in Warrenton, Virginia. He owned the newspapers and a lot of stuff up there. These are the people who were our first members. And then Ken Hyde, he was the American Airline captain. Stan Parrish, he was congressman. And Don Dillman, Eastern Airlines. Don McClure was Eastern Airlines. And Dick Anger was Eastern Airlines. And then myself and John Verzell, he was a pastor in Northern Virginia. And Charlie Pearson was an architect. And Lou Davis, he was our publicity man, but he was a pilot. And Doug Newhouse was a United pilot. Bill Barnes was an Eastern pilot. And Johnny Richards was in the gun business and stuff in Alexandria. And Doug Hazel, he was a big electrician in Warrenton. He had his own biplane. And Sam Cooper was a member, and Noah Moore was a United captain. And Bert Brooks learned to fly gliders. The first day we opened, it had rained before, and we had the field there was no grass on it. The grass hadn't grown yet, and we had a mess out there. The cars, you wouldn't believe, there was thousands of people. And we had the governor there to cut the ribbon for the show. And so we couldn't park cars on the place. It was too wet. We parked a few. So we had to immediately, we had a neighboring farmer that let us use his property, which was not as muddy as ours. And I remember this state trooper came in his car, and I saw him coming towards me, and he took his hand up and pushed his hat on the back of his head, and he says, "You know, y'all have a hell of a mess out here on the highway." And I said, we had back cars up on 17, Route 17, to where it was bad. And I said, "I hope you can help us." Anyway, he was a nice trooper. And so the farmer had a tractor and a couple of wagons, and Boots Ritchie, who was our farmer neighbor, he was just as nice to us as he could be, and he used his wagons to haul the people from his farm over to the Flying Circus so we could get the show going. It was an unbelievable mess, but we packed them all in there. We didn't fly these airplanes much because we had very little practice. We just flew them a couple of times, and we never practiced in the airplanes. What we were doing, we pretty much learned in the show. And they were company-owned airplanes, and the way a lot of them were, you know, one of them had a 1910 engine in it, 1911. And so we didn't put a lot of flying time on them. We only used them in the show. Now some of the guys owned their own older airplanes or were biplanes and things like that filled in the show to complete it. But the company-owned airplanes, we never flew them. Well, the company, I'd say company, but it was the Flying Circus Aerodrome is what we named our outfit, the Flying Circus Aerodrome, and we bought a little over 200 acres of land out there, and that's what we all tried out flying a couple of the airplanes in the beginning, and we just mutually among us agreed who would fly what airplane. And then, you know, as the years went on, that's the way we operated, that if you wanted to be in the show, you demonstrated to all of us what you could do, and then if we liked it, then you showed the FAA what you could do, which was the Federal Aviation Agency. The government oversaw all air shows. In fact, almost every air show we had out there, the government would be on the field supervising us. So that's the way that worked. And so you were approved to fly by the members of the Flying Circus, and then you got approved. If we thought that was good, then the FAA would look at you, and then you could be in the show. What we did, we just tried to show people we all wore World War I uniforms, and a lot of the women in our snack bar, they wore nurses' uniforms. Everybody in the show, on the show side of the field, had clothing of the period. And what we liked about the field is when you were in the bleacher part of the field, when you watched the show, you could not see any other buildings, no farms, no nothing. You were looking straight out, and you were looking at replicas of World War I and people flying them in German, British, American uniforms. And it was quite educational, and it really set you back in time. And we played music of the period, and it was a pretty nice thing for a bunch of guys like us that just got together and didn't know what the hell they were doing. Well, we all knew how to fly, but that's about it. In time, and you know, we were paying off a note on the airplanes, and we were getting ready to make a move to buy the land, and we realized that we couldn't do all of this at one time, and to own a replica World War I airplane, which a lot of them were just single-seat airplanes, nobody wanted to own a single-place airplane. So we decided to move, after 2 years, to move our period up to the 30s, the Barnstormer era, which was after World War II, and then those airplanes were pretty functional. So then we had people that would be interested in owning one of them. And so we said, okay, each person buy his own airplane if he wants to fly in the show, and demonstrate to us what he can do to make a movie of the 30s. I mean, not a movie, but a show. And so at that time, after 2 years, we sold all of the airplanes that we had. Now this created a problem because a lot of our people were really purists, and they really loved World War I. And so about half of our group decided to quit and sell the stock and the airplanes were sold to an outfit up in Pennsylvania, and they were going to do a show like we'd been doing. So we then found out that a lot of people already owned 30s airplanes, and a lot more people would like to buy one, because if you had a reason to fly it and a place to fly it, that made it great. So so then we really started getting in a lot of members, and we were getting thicker and thicker on the act, so everybody didn't have to be there. See, the first 2 years, we had to be there almost every Sunday, every single Sunday. And, you know, people with families, that got old after a little bit, especially if you were just volunteering. And that's what it was all about. So anyway, that kind of tells that story. And then after 2 years, the company stopped owning airplanes, and then we were able to start purchasing the land. And then we finally paid the farm off in 1990, and I stayed as their curator and mechanic and do-it-yourself whatever up until 1990, and then I wanted to do something. I wanted to do something else, and so I resigned from being airport manager and curator. Well, I had been doing after we sold the old airplanes, I didn't have an airplane, so I bought an airplane to teach my 2 boys to fly at the Flying Circus. And what I had did is I tried out to be a comedy act in the 1930s show. And they liked what I did, and I flew for the Federal Aviation Agency, and so they put me in the show in 1973 as a comedy act.
Under the old hackberry tree, the oldest hackberry tree in the state of Virginia and the tallest.
It's a tribute to you, Charlie.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you're all having a wonderful time today. Let me know if you are. Are you having a good time? Isn't this a beautiful day? Well, listen, we've got more formation flying for you today. Let's get that guy down out of the sky. We've got lots more action, but right now we're just going to take a little break. So smoke them if you got them. We're going to stop the show for a minute. We're just going to give an old timer an airplane ride. His name is Silas Hicks. Silas Hicks has been kind of a guy that's helped us out around here for a long time, and he never wanted to get paid for his work. He just said all he wanted to do was get an airplane ride. And so we said that, well, it's the last show of the season, and we thought it would be appropriate to just take 5 minutes of your time to let him go for an airplane ride in an old J3 Piper Cub. Is that okay with y'all? Would that be all right? We'll give him a little airplane ride. We'll have a pilot out here in a minute. I think we're going to start up. There's the airplane. The engine's ticking over right now. That's a beautiful J3 Piper Cub. It's just about as old as I am, and I am as old as the hills. So the airplane can't do much, but it can take off and it can fly around. And so it's buzzing around over the trees for 5 minutes, and then we'll have more formation flying and aerobatics and all kinds of wonderful things taking place. And let's see that we've got Silas over here. Silas lives right down the back road. That's why you probably never seen him around, but let me just come over and shake his hand. Hello, Silas. I know that this is a day you look forward to for a long, long time. You got any words for us? No words at all. You're speechless. Well, Silas, there's the J3 Cub that you've wanted to ride in for so long. We're going to get you a little ride, take you up, fly around. People are going to grab a hamburger or a Coke or whatever, just sit tight and talk to each other. And once we get you back down on the ground, the air show will continue. So we want you to have a wonderful time. Okay? This is your moment. you know that you have earned it. I mean, you put in many, many, many hours here to fly. Here comes the airplane. Who's flying today? Who's in that aircraft? That's Mark Menifee in the airplane. Mark is very famous pilot named Bill Menifee, a United captain, and a wonderful old friend who left before his time, once upon a time, long ago. Well, this is an old airplane. It's got rivets. Don't do that. You don't want to do that. It's delicate. It's old. It's, you know, but I mean, it's old. But I mean, what can I say? Look, it's got dimples in it. Now, if you'll just walk around the airplane here, Silas. Come on over this way, okay? Watch the rudder, and we'll... Silas, what are you doing? Come on. Silas, don't break it.
Get off that airplane!
Come on, Silas, you can't do that.
Get off that airplane!
Yeah, thinks it's a mule, yeah. You're just scatting around. Has he been drinking? You haven't been drinking that? No? Now look, get in the airplane. We're going to take you out. 5 minutes is all we ask. This guy's, he thinks he's the clown act. He thinks he's having fun here today. Well, we'll get him up and around. And as soon as we do, then we'll get the show on again. Okay. Pilot's going to taxi not. Mark, wait a minute. Oh! Stop it. Tell Mark to stop. That tail wheel doesn't look right. Hold it. I don't know whether he heard something or not. Mark! Hang on just a minute. Hang on. I think we got a problem back here. We're going to take a look at it. It looks to me like the tail wheel might be bent or broken. You want to taxi this a little bit? Let's see how it goes. I'll walk along with you. Mark, it's still wobbling. Mark, it's wobbling. Mark! Hold it. Tell him to stop. Mark, one thing we got here, a lot of airplanes around here. We can do this after the turn. This guy Silas won't mind. He won't mind. No, the tail wheel, look. It's obviously broken. Look at it, it's wobbling all over the place. What are you doing out of the airplane? Why are you out of the airplane? Hey! Stop! Oh, Silas! You silly goof! Holy smoke! I thought he was going to crash on takeoff there. Hey, what? You're clueless! I mean, what's the deal? There's no pilot in that airplane, only Silas Hicks. What gives? Is the radio on? He can't fly! This is his first flight! You have a radio on this time? He's got a receiver, but the radio's taken down. Hey, Tower, can you switch his threads? We'll see if we can't talk you down. What do you suggest to do? Please get your airplane back. You're never supposed to. Oh my gosh, pull back! Oh. Now, listen, Silas, if you can hear me, we're going to try to get you back down on the ground, and then we'll continue with the show. Back to the left and back to the right, and if you push the rudder as you're doing now, well, you're going to turn to the left, but you can't do a flat turn in an airplane like that. That's good. Ease in a little stick. When you push a little rudder, push a little stick. Ease the stick around to the left. Now, you're getting a little slow. Okay, look, Silas, we want you to the airplane around very gently. We want you to land back into the wind. Hear me, and you can see the direction in which the flags are. No, Silas. Now you're crossing it up. Silas, you're going to fall down. Now, Silas, listen. What to do is ease the airplane back around. I want you to get a feel for the sticks, get a feel for the rudders. If you pull back on the stick, the airplane's nose will go up, and the airplane will slow. There you go with another one of those flat turns. No. That's okay. Silas, look down the runway. No jig and jog. No. Don't take the rudder counters like that, Silas. You're going to have a big problem with that. No, Silas. Oh, look. You got it. You got a wheel down. Silas. Don't push forward on the throttle. Not the throttle. No, you were almost back home. Oh my gosh. Boys and girls, what are we going to do with this man? He's back up in the sky again and he can't fly the airplane. Heavens to Murgatroyd! All right, now listen, Silas. I'm not fooling around. You apparently know more than we think you know, but I don't know if you know enough about landing the airplane to get by with it and putting it on the ground in one piece. A little bit of stick. You're climbing at a radical angle. I don't want you to climb like that. I want you to, Silas, you pull back on the throttle. You've got to kick the opposite rudder. Neutralize the stick. Pull back on the stick. No, Silas, you're diving now. Ease it back. Ease it back. Pull it back. Not that far back, Silas. You can't fly it sideways either, so don't do that, please. Now, Silas, enough of this fooling around. We're going to get you back down on the ground, and we're going to have a nice little talk. Hey, maybe I can induce you down. How does the word something like that, eh? Can we lure you back? Look at the way the flags are blowing. You can see which way the wind is. Okay, you're lining up with the runway over there by the trees. You're going to get some gustiness coming across the trees. But if you line it up, no, not a sash yet. Easy does it. Now you're pushing left rudder, right rudder, left rudder, right rudder. You're strutting along like a floozy on Friday afternoon in Philadelphia. No. Nice and easy does it. Just ease it around. We're going to get you. We want you to land in the direction opposite the flags. You see how the flags are blowing? If you look down over here, you'll see the flags. They're all blowing on a diagonal to the runway you were just flying over. So we'd like to line you up with the flags and have you come in on what we call our little crosswind runway right over here. So you're going to have the white tent on your left, and you're going to be looking at the tree. Okay? No. You're kind of skidding me. That's it. You want to get it around to the right. Good. No. You're over controlling the airplane. You're pushing too much rudder. You don't want to push rudder. Easy does it. Watch the tent. I said beside the tent, not over the tent. Now, ease it around. Kick a little left rudder. A little left rudder. You got a wheel down. Get another wheel down. You got 2 wheels down. Get the tail wheel down and you're landing. Get that tail wheel down. Hold that airplane! Somebody get that guy out of here! Where's the police? Stop that man! Stop that man! Stop that man! Oh, brother. Now I know why I'm not out here any longer. Ladies and gentlemen, this, of course, is a man who's famous all over the country, noted as one of the last of the great barnstormers, if not the last barnstormer. A man who's flown everywhere in that J3 Cub. His real name is Charlie Culp. He uses the name Silas Hicks because that's who he borrowed these coveralls from 35 years ago when you started.
We all love what we're doing, and what drew a lot of people to the Flying Circus, a lot of people owned 1930s and 1940 airplanes, but a lot of times if you're on a modern airport, people kind of look down and their nose at you, and you hear rumors like he was born after his time, and because we were flying these old airplanes, and hey, wind in your face, open cockpit, and not very dependable. And so when we found a place that we could all assemble and have the people that do like them come to us, man, that was the greatest thing on earth. You know what I mean? To go from a modern airport around modern airplanes and modern pilots, if we liked old airplanes, then we went to the Flying Circus and people would come there and see us, and they've been coming there to see us, and they love it. Well, we have various acts, and some people, like my act, people like to laugh. Well, then we have a wing walking act, and that's kind of a thrill show like, and this is where a person goes up with the pilot and gets out of the cockpit of the airplane, gets out of his seat, and then he will walk out to the wing and holding on to the wires. These are biplanes and the wings are held together with wires. So he would walk along the wing. Now, the wings are covered with fabric, so he can't just walk anywhere on the wing. He's got to walk on a little narrow piece of wood, which is the spar that goes from the cockpit of the airplane out to the end of the wing, and he has to walk along that wooden spar. And then they also climb up. There's a rack on the airplane. The rack is a rack that we built, and he gets up in the rack, and the airplane will do a loop. And you know, that's a really thrill to the crowd. And when you don't hear much from them when the airplane is flying around, but the ones standing on the wing. But when they get up on the top wing and buckle themselves onto the post, when the airplane does a loop, you can hear everybody in the crowd let out some kind of a rumble.
Okay, around the strut and dangle underneath the wing, letting go with his hands by his ankles. Yes, he will, too. Here he goes. He's going to let go with his hands and hang on by his heels. Chuck Tippett, ladies and gentlemen, dangling under the wing. Give him a hand. Woo! Meanwhile, Kirk Wicker using a ton of right rudder. I wish you could see all that right rudder. He's got his foot kicked into that right rudder. Look at that right rudder on that thing. And pushing right aileron. Again, if you think the regular steerman takes a lot of muscle, well then when you use the 450 horsepower, yeah, it takes a lot more muscle. Stick a belt around his waist and his feet in the stirrups. There's a slow picture-taking pass and a good one. But full throttle means we're going up. Okay, he's got his arms up like you do on a roller coaster. We got 140, 150 miles an hour coming downhill. Oh yeah, good 150. Woo-hoo! Over the top we go, ladies and gentlemen. Whoa! Kirk Wicker and Chuck Tippett waving his arms all the way through that. Wow! I'd be scared to death. I am scared to death just watching it. I'm not going to do it. I'm chicken.
There's any number of people that just came out wanting to be near the airplanes and wanting to see them close, and then finally wanting to be part of it. They just pushed airplanes and gassed airplanes and mowed grass and did everything. But little by little they learned how to fly. And then through the years, with the circus being almost 50 years old, they have lived long enough and developed enough that they are now part of the air show, flying in the air shows. And that's the greatest part of it, is the people that are coming up through our own roots right there. That's so nice. Yeah. I remember having my parents on the field one time, and I was walking behind them, and they were walking across the little field. We were waiting for the show to start. And I heard my mother say to my father, she says, "When did we ever hear music last like that again?" He'd never been up in an airplane in his life, and I had taken her for one ride, and she wouldn't go anymore because he wouldn't go. And but they walked away from there with the music. You know, so everybody gets something. And there may be some people that get something from the whole show, but there are other people get something from 2 things in the show, 3 things in the show, 4 things in the show. There is something different that you're going to hit somebody. There is so many different kind of things going on. And, you know, a lot of times we have old cars out there. Well, somebody that came along with somebody that didn't give a damn for an airplane likes old cars. Like a three-ring circus, everybody walks away with something, but most of all, nostalgia.